2020 that your practice has shifted. You made a pivot. And I'm hoping you can kind of talk us through what that evolution of your practice and your focus as a lawyer and advocate has looked like.
Certainly. Seth, let me first thank you and the Innocence Project of Florida, not only for doing this on this day, um, October 16th, 2023, when we lost um, Leonard, but thank you for exonerating Leonard. I mean, without the Innocence Project and his mother's conviction, the world would have written him down as a hardened criminal, not worthy of the benefit of the doubt, not worthy of the benefit of the possibility, not worthy of the benefit, I think, in many regards, of humanity, how they treat sisters and brothers who have been incarcerated. So I just can't even start the conversation, brother, without thanking you and all of those warriors at the Innocence Project of Florida and Innocence Projects all over America, those social justice warriors who make such a difference. And I know, man, it's you all are unsung heroes in my eyes. I think about a lot of times people take for granted the important work that the Innocence Project of Florida do. Uh, People don't think about their liberty being snatched away from them until it happens. And even though it happens disproportionately to people of color, I think there are times when we don't really think that it can happen to us. And I know my other people can't even fathom being wrongfully incarcerated. But it's people like yourself and the Innocence Project officials who never forget that our liberty is but a wrongful allegation away from being taken from us, and you are in a cage, and people treat you as less than human. And I can only imagine for all the Leonard Kears out there who you have exonerated, we can never ever give you all enough flowers. That's why I always encourage people, you know, if you want to make a difference and you can't go take on a case or you can't go be an expert, or what you can do is give. Give to the people who are doing the work. That's why I give. I know I try to do the work, but I can't do it like Seth Miller, and I'm supposed to be Black America's Attorney General. But there are some things, as Dr. King said, we all have a role to play. And I get emotional because I think about the time I did meet Leonard at the gala, and then to, have to meet his mother and his brothers and sisters like this. It just reminds me over and over again, thank God for you all, because his mother got to prove to the world that her baby boy was innocent.
Thank you so much for saying that, brother. I appreciate it. So
Yeah.
tell us
Okay.
about you a little bit. Tell us about your,
Woosah. I
yeah,
had to get that out.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. It got us rolling here. So tell us about your kind of evolution from your practice in
Yeah.
Tallahassee to this sort of national work that you're doing to be a sort of tip of the spear on all of these cases where people's civil rights are violated.
Yeah. Self, my personal hero has always been Thurgood Marshall. And I decided when I was a little 9-year-old, nappy headed boy, when I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer like Thurgood Marshall to try to help my community and especially people who look like me, have an equal opportunity at the American promise of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And so, I went to law school with that mindset. We got out of law school, Daryl Parks and I, we turned down our job offers because we wanted to do the kind of work that we didn't think other people would let us do. And we were still naive enough to think that we could do it, and we didn't need nobody permission. We didn't need nobody license to tell us that we can go fight for marginalized people, especially Black people who, gave us a chance in life. And so, the Bible talk about, you know, babies and fools. We weren't babies, so I guess we were fools, but sometimes we all need to be a little foolish and have the audacity to believe that we can make a difference. And so that's what we started doing. We hung up our shingle, and, at first we were doing rent law, anything that, would pay the rent. We got pretty good at doing criminal work. We walking people out the courtrooms, and everybody say, "Hey, Attorney Crow, can I get your card? Can I get your card?" And so that, and we kind of, I credit this to the ancestors. We did not have a spirit of fear. We went in there and we challenged some of the most conservative judges on the belief that the Constitution was real for Black people and brown people and white people equally. And we got threatened with contempts and things at times. I've matured, but I remember in those young days, I would tell the judge, that's wrong, and we would be emphatic about it because she was looking and you were saying, Self, why is it okay for that our white sister and brother are doing it, but then when our Black sister and brother do it, then it's a crime. You want to lock them up and brand them with that scarlet letter of being a convicted felon. Um, and so it was that there, and I'm gonna come back to a point talking about that because I almost sometimes feel I sometimes feel a little ashamed as a Black, not just as a Black lawyer, but as a Black man with the disproportionate number of Black people being charged with trumped up felony convictions, that we all aren't all doing criminal work trying to save our young sisters and brothers. Um, and I understand my role now is to do civil rights, major mass tort cases, and those type of things to make money to be able to support the civil rights cases. But the criminal part of it, and Innocence Project of Florida understand it, man. This racist criminal legal system, I sometimes don't want to call it criminal justice system because, and many times, there's no justice for poor people of color without having, heroes like you and your colleagues at the Innocence Projects around the country to go fight for them, or those public defenders who, continue to take on these trumped up charges that happen every day. But I'll get back to that because you asked me a question and I want to answer your question. We transitioned from doing criminal law then to doing car accidents, and we got good at that. And then we started getting really good at wrongful death. But in my mind, I still always remember why I went to law school, and it was to try to help people have an equal opportunity at the American dream. And I understood that civil rights was the key to helping all of us have an equal right at the American dream. So I was using that to finance all these police brutality cases, all these cases that happen and nobody seemed to give a damn about, just killing Black people left and right and they sweep it under the rug. And so I remember the first significant case that got a lot of attention. It was before the internet exploded itself, and that was Martin Lee Anderson
Yeah.
in Panama City, Florida, the boot camp case.
Mhm.
I tell people it was Trayvon Martin before Trayvon Martin happened 6 years earlier, and it it was just so hard to watch because at the first time we kind of saw video of a kid being killed by law enforcement. It's not like now we see it, unfortunately and tragically, over and over again. But that was the first time this 14-year-old little boy named Martin Lee Anderson was put in the Bay County Sheriff's Department boot camp. And man, they kicked him, punched him, suffocated him, putting ammonia tablets up his nose that was supposed to be reviving him after he kept passing out, and he ended up dying. And even though we were able to recover the largest amount to this day paid out by the state of Florida for a police killing of a Black person, or I think of a citizen, $10 million. Not one of those 8 sheriff's deputies went to prison for killing that baby. Not one. And so that kind of let people know that, Crump is crazy. He take on cases that nobody would take on, because I remember Gina Jones, God bless her soul, she passed 2 years ago, Martin Lee Anderson's mother. I remember when she came to my office, Seth, from Panama City, she called and she said she went to 2 other lawyers before us, and they told her, I've seen this movie before. Police kill a Black kid. They say he was resisting and he was being, violent, and nobody gets charged, nobody goes to jail. And so, as much as my heart breaks for you, I can't afford to take on this case. But there's this young Black lawyer in Tallahassee who might consider taking on the case. And so she came to my office and she said, Attorney Crump, thank you for agreeing to talk to me, because I want somebody to help me, because my son didn't deserve to be killed like this. And I know people like me don't get justice, but I at least got to try. And it burns in my soul even to this day, Seth Miller, when she said, people like me. I'm like, what does she mean? Poor people, Black people, brokenhearted mothers, people like me don't get justice. And so we fought that fight. And then there were some other cases, but then Trayvon Benjamin Martin was walking home with a can of Skittles, can of iced tea, and a bag of Skittles. February, I'm sorry, it was February 5th, February 26th. His birthday is on February 5th, 2012. And the neighborhood watch volunteer with a 9mm gun profiled Trayvon, pursued Trayvon, and shot Trayvon in the heart. Trayvon walked off his hoodie because it was raining that night. And after he shot Trayvon, he went home and slept in his bed. Mm. And that's every parent's worst nightmare, especially parents of color. That's our worst nightmare. You know what made Trayvon such a, I think, tragic situation, if I'm just speaking honestly? Black people, as wrong as it is, we had got used to the police killing our children, we were reading the paper and shake our head and say, but by the grace of God, there go I. But Seth Miller, man, when he shot Trayvon, and then he said, stand your ground. Many of us had never heard of the stand your ground law. And it became a situation where not any Tom, Dick, and Harry white person could shoot our children and then just say, stand your ground and go home and sleep in their bed at night. I mean, what can we do? I mean, the laws were so unfavorable to people of color and marginalized poor people. Now let black person kill a white person. They can say self-defense, castle doctrine, stand your ground. They can say anything they want to. They'll be saying it from a jail cell.
They're going to prison.
They going to quickest way to get to death row, as you know, God knows I'm preaching to the choir. To be a person of color and to kill a white person, that's the quickest way to get to death row in America. Other way around, not so much.
But we see a through line between, from that sort of first instance with Martin Lee Anderson, Trayvon, and I had the privilege to meet his mother one time at the Capitol when I saw you there. George Floyd, all these other cases you worked on up until Leonard Cure, right? And so, I mean, I wanted to give a little bit of background. People know who you are. Maybe less people know about our client, Leonard Cure. And I think it's important to note that he was wrongfully convicted in 2003 of an armed robbery of a Walgreens in Broward County. And we got involved in the case because it appeared that he may have been misidentified by the store clerk at the Walgreens. And I think it's, you gave us our flowers, but we need to point out that we worked hand in hand with prosecutor Ariel Debbie Berger of the Conviction Review Unit at Broward State Attorney's Office to collaboratively investigate this case, to reinvestigate it. And at the end of that process, Ariel shepherded the case through their state attorney process, and he determined that Lenny was likely misidentified and likely innocent, based on a number of things, but most notably that we had a Wells Fargo ATM receipt from like 5 miles away that was from the time of the robbery. It sort of rarely happens, but we had it, which was amazing. And so that led to his conviction being vacated and the charges being dropped. And at the time, it was during COVID, so everything was a little crazy. And so we were able to get him out of prison in April 2020 while we were still reinvestigating, and then finally vacated the conviction and exonerated him in December 2020 after he had spent 16 years wrongfully incarcerated, away from his mom, away from his siblings, away from his entire family. And kind of like one of my last interactions with him is that we worked with Ariel at the state attorney's office, and they were so supportive of him getting compensated. And they worked with us in 2023 to make that happen. And he drove to Tallahassee, and we went to the CFO's office and, handed him a compensation check. And we took pictures. They were really happy to do it. And that was just, 4 months before this tragedy that happened to him 2 years ago today. And, before we sort of get into your involvement, Ben, I wanted to just know for folks, I remember like vividly, like where I was when I got the phone call, and, his sister called me, and all she had said, they took him. And I was confused. I didn't know what she was talking about. And I calmed her down, and she explained it to me. And then the news agency started calling about, Lenny being shot during a traffic stop. And, obviously we were gutted by this, but his family was looking for answers. And that's when I called you. And so I was hoping that you could kind of talk about a little bit about that experience. It gives a window into kind of how you go about getting involved in these cases. But, we went to Camden County, you, me, folks from your team, his family, and, had a press conference and went and watched a dash cam footage. I was hoping you could talk us kind of through that experience.
Yeah, I remember that call too, Seth. I was in Los Angeles, California, working on a matter. Uh, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe it because he had finally gotten his life back. And, Thurgood Marshall, he's my North Star, so I go back to him, and we get about 50,000 calls a month now for all the injustice that people are dealing with, it mostly, black and brown people, and you can't help them all, so you try to figure out what to do. And Thurgood Marshall had a matrix that he used too. His matrix was number one, he tried to take on the case because they were lynching so many black people when Thurgood Marshall was gallivanting around the country, uh, that he would try to pick the ones that would make the largest impact on the greater society. So you think about a George Floyd, you take that one, even though there are 1,000 other George Floyds that you can't get through, or Breonna Taylor or Ahmaud Arbery, and the list can go on and on. Um, and then his second matrix self, and I would imagine you all probably have the same dynamic. His second matrix was you take the cases that shock your conscience. Once you just can't turn out, you can't look away because your soul won't have rest. And that's what I thought about Leonard Keir case. I said, man, I wonder, and it was confirmed after we started talking, was he one of the people at your gala? You remember we had it in Tallahassee like in 2022, or right after COVID. And I said, man, he just got freed and then they kill him. Now we gotta do something about this. We gotta make them know that this is unique. This isn't like other matters, because his story is one of perseverance and overcoming the system, overcoming the bias in the system and everything. And so we got to elevate his name in this tragedy, because that is the legacy we have to give to Brother Leonard. And Seth, I thank God that you didn't think of Robert to drop everything and drive like a thief in the night over to Camden County. I flew like a thief in the night. And his mother, Mary. Man, I can't say enough things about his mother, Mary, his brother Michael, and sisters, and everybody. Because the thing that I did not know, Seth, that you probably knew, his mother, Mary, even though all of society has said he's a hardened criminal, she never gave up on him. She went every week to drive to see her son. Sometimes he said 2 hours away, driving to see her son every week. And when they offered him the plea, as they often do, lie on yourself. Say that you did it so we can give you reduced time. His mother said, don't do that, baby. Don't do that. And it's just one of those things, Seth Miller, that we had to go there. And when we looked at the video of Buck Aldrich,
I've never experienced anything like that. I mean, in my work, I mean, we watch videos of crimes happening to other people, and so I mean, it's I mean, I'm not trying to center myself. It's just it's a horrific
yeah,
experience as a lawyer, as the person's lawyer who made a relationship with them, to watch them be, we can talk a little bit about the circumstances, but to watch the dash cam footage and then, have to watch it with his brothers, and to have, to experience his brothers, to have to, they've already they've already lived being told your brother got shot by the cops, but now have to relive it and see it. It's
yeah,
horrific. It's totally horrific. And more, I just went home that night, hugged my son, and kissed him and held him tight, and there before the grace of God go I, right? And so I just, and so I mean, it's probably a good time to kind of. I'm
I
sorry, go for it.
I did want to say this, and watching that video, as so many others,
Mhm.
I say, how many things could they have done
Yes.
to not kill him?
Hmm.
I mean, it was a speeding ticket, for God's sakes.
Hmm.
A speeding ticket. You could have given him a ticket. You could give him notice up here, everything. But this guy, this Deputy Buck Aldrich, he had a history
Hmm.
of, alleged history of, you know, engaging in excessive use of force with black men in particular. I mean, we got other bad videos on him now in our civil lawsuit that we filed. I know we'll get to that in a minute. But one of the things I thought about too was what was going through Leonard's mind.
Hmm.
I mean, this guy saying, I'm taking you to jail after he'd been in a cage for 16 years for something he didn't do, to say, you gonna take me back there and I got to trust the system? You want me to just have faith in the system? I think about so often what the great James Baldwin said. He said, you know, they say in this courtroom, justice is blind, justice is fair. And James Baldwin said, so you want, he said, my, in my, and I don't know if this court is racist, or I don't know if the uh, real estate board is racist, but I know me and my children live in rat infested slums. And I don't know if the school system is racist or not, but I know my children go to school in lead poison buildings with torn up books. He said, and you want me to come in this courtroom and believe something that I've never seen anywhere else in America,
Hmm.
that is blind and is fair to color. And that's what I can only imagine was going through Leonard's mind even more profoundly, because he had said he was innocent before and nobody believed him,
That's right.
even though he had proof. And so now you got this cop on the side of the road on a sunny afternoon in South Georgia telling him, I'm taking you back to jail, and you should just be fine with it. I can only imagine what was going through that brother's mind as he said, no, I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going back to jail, because last time I trusted America, what did you all do to me?
That's right.
And so then the cop, tased him and then shot him 3 times.
I mean, I think it's, I had the same exact reaction when I first watched the video. There's right from the jump. And so for folks who haven't seen it, I
It was
don't,
depressing.
yeah, I don't recommend you go watch it, but I will say that um, the law enforcement officer came out about as hot as you could, getting out of the car, pointing the taser at him, yelling at him to get out of the car. You're going to jail. You're under arrest. And Leonard gets out of the car. And then, what am I under arrest for? Give me a speeding ticket and let me get on my way. No asking for license and registration. Getting him to put his hands on a truck, which he did, and then tased him, even though he was complying. And at the time he tased him, I've never been tased, but I can only imagine it, as it did here, it causes involuntary, movements in your body that caused him to move into the space of the law enforcement officer, that led to an altercation that gave the officer the pretext to shoot him. And so, the thing that strikes me about this is that, you know, the world, when they see this, it becomes like a comments under the article, in the newspaper, and everyone there's no mitigating circumstances. There's nothing about, well, what happened or what could have been done differently to make sure that everyone gets home unscathed. It's, well, he deserved to die, right? So this is kind of the point, is like, you know, other people get special dispensations, other people get grace, other people get treated professionally. But if someone like Leonard Cure, has, the temerity to get out of the car and be like, what is this even about?
Yeah.
He gets no grace. He gets no special dispensation. He gets to die. He gets to not get home that day, and the cop gets absolved of any responsibility. And I don't know. I don't want to live in a world like that. That makes no sense to me.
That's what the fight is about. Trying to make sure your son Gideon, my daughter Brooklyn, all our children get to live in a better America, a better world, where they don't have to be prejudged by on the side of the road by a judge, jury, and executioner. Uh, and then I just think about all the injustice that Leonard had to deal with for him to be taken from his mother a second time like that. Um, I look forward to our day in court, and I ask you all to keep his mother and his siblings in prayer, because I do want his mother to see some measure of justice, some measure of accountability. You remember, Seth, when we went there, we met with the DA, and he said,
Mhm.
you know, ain't no nothing to see here. They ain't gonna do anything about it. He should have complied. And that's always something that is hard for me as a civil rights lawyer. That they always say, oh, well, if you just comply. But then we see all these examples where our white sisters and brothers don't comply and they don't get a death sentence. Uh, and so that's what we deal with over and over again. But in particular, one of the things I remember and this happens so often, it happened in Trayvon, the DA says, well, we're not gonna do anything. So then I grew up in the government housing projects myself, and the question becomes, okay, what you gonna do about it? And so, it becomes personal to me, and I got to work on myself. Self. I'm still a work in progress, because you do have a little chip on your shoulder that we're gonna make the world see us and the humanity in us too. And so it was like, well, what you gonna do? And we said it ain't no crime, and thank God we have the audacity to believe that the Constitution applies to us too. And so under the Seventh Amendment, me and Attorney Harry Daniels and Attorney Sue Ann Robertson and Gabrielle Higgins, working along with you and others, we said, no, we're going to get all these facts and we're going to file this lawsuit on behalf of Leonard Cure. The end of the story won't be what the DA said, that there's nothing to see here. Well, we saw the video. And once you see that video, you can't unsee that video of this brother who had been twice assassinated by the powers that be in the criminal justice system, the so-called criminal justice system, wrongfully convicted, now executed on the side of the road. And so we filed the lawsuit for $16 million. And Seth, that's a nod to you and the Innocence Project, because we want $1 million for every year they robbed of his life, because his life mattered, and that there's humanity in Leonard Cure. He had dreams and aspirations that they stole from him before, and he got out of prison. And I know, I don't know if people knew, he had bought a home in
Yeah.
Atlanta, Georgia. He was planning on going to college. He said, as I understand from his mother, he wanted to try to learn more about legal studies.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I
And
mean, he had goals and dreams, and we think about this in terms of wrongful incarceration, all the lost human capital, but the struggle doesn't end when folks get out. And in this case, for all that effort, for all his perseverance and the fortitude on the part of his family to have him, stolen from us, killed on the side of I-95. It's just tragic. And, you're alluding to something about looking for accountability, right? So it's not just about the recompense or his family, but it's holding folks accountable. And I want to understand a little bit about what accountability looks like, because we sat there that day, right when we watched the dash cam video, we sat with the DA, as you mentioned, and he was like, we're going to look into it. But we knew what the deal was, right?
Yep.
But we have since found out, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that the officer has been charged federally because of a pattern of violating people's civil rights, and now this lawsuit, which I presume is going to focus on the fact that he had that pattern and got fired from other agencies. And this is what happens. And, the bad actors, they're bad actors at one agency, and they pop around, keep getting jobs, and they keep getting hired and keep getting to prey on the public. And so talk to us a little bit about what that lawsuit looks like, and how you frame the idea of accountability.
Certainly. And I'm glad you brought that up, because we serve a God that sits high and looks low. And even though the local district attorney there in Georgia said they were not going to charge the officer, thank God to the Biden administration and their Department of Justice. God knows we miss them. We miss Chris Clark, who was head of the Civil Rights Division. But they looked at this officer, Buck Aldrich, and they looked at the videos of him on multiple occasions, even before Leonard Clear, how he treated citizens. And they concluded that he had violated the constitutional rights of those citizens under the color of law within his duty and performance as an officer. He was using that to violate people's constitutional rights. So that is what we believe a prima facie evidence to show this is what happened with Leonard Keir, especially since he got out of that car on 10. When he stopped Leonard, it was not even any de-escalation.
No de-escalation.
It was like escalation times 100.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Cliff Jones, my investigator, we were there and we watched that video, and we was like, man, he never gave Leonard a chance. It was like, time he stopped him, you going to jail. And I mean, we talked about it often, what was going through Leonard's mind. But now we have the evidence of his past dastardly deeds coupled with what we saw him do to Leonard, and we think we can successfully articulate to a jury that it was foreseeable. They were put on notice. He never should have been hired at the sheriff's department in the first place, if he had been let go of previous law enforcement agencies. And the fact that the sheriff's department has the blood on their hands too for killing Leonard Keir, because they never should have put this guy back on the streets to harass and brutalize people, especially people of color. And so that's the basis of our lawsuit. Preferably, we're going to give his mother some measure of justice, and hopefully it'll be more justice than most marginalized people ever see in their life, because we pray that this officer is convicted criminally and that there's some civil accountability as well. And if we can figure out how to get a Leonard Keir law passed, and that's why I'm going to lean on your brilliant self, we need to come up with at least an effort to have some Leonard Keir law to be able to give full justice, where it's not only affecting Leonard's family, but it's affecting the beloved community.
So I want to take us out of here, kind of looking forward, even past the lawsuit, look bigger. I mean, when I look around the country at this moment, when I think about law enforcement interactions with people, it feels like things are on steroids, right? You look at immigration actions in our biggest cities, just kidnapping people, abusing people, disappearing people, not just undocumented people, which is bad enough, but legal residents or citizens being just disappeared for days on ends, and then just their families don't know where they are, being brutalized, and it feels like all the work that you and others have been doing to sort of bring light to this, like what's happening now is almost in response to that. It feels like, and so I do wonder, you know, the bigger picture. What lessons can we take from Lenny's tragic death and apply to these, the broader societal situation here in the United States to try to disrupt this moment, to arrest this negative progress and be able to change the trajectory and move forward in a positive way, to that we can all be proud of as Americans.
You know, so many things come to my mind as I heard you talk about the challenges that we now face, Seth. I think about, if I remember my grandmother always telling me, you got to remember, baby, the darkest part of night is right before daybreak.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing, if we are students of history, and I know they're trying to get rid of Black history in the state of Florida, and that's a whole nother story.
Mhm.
Uh, but if we look at history, it teaches us that anytime we find ourselves in crisis situations, it also presents opportunities and parallel opportunities. And a lot of times in American history in particular, when we had extreme leaders who seemed to try to take us back and oppress our constitutional and civil rights, those were the times when we were able to get some of our greatest achievements if we
Mhm.
just stayed the course. So we just got to stay the course. And everything we're seeing is a reaction to what we've been doing. In fact, I have a book coming out, not to be hawking a book, but I've wrote a Black Perry Mason fictional character because we need to see superhero Black lawyers too. We've
Mhm.
seen enough superhero white lawyers, but there are Black lawyers who we want people to know exist and toll in the vineyard and work just as hard. And so this character, Bo Lee Cooper, the book is about the reaction to President Obama being elected and there being a bad police killing in Chicago, loosely based on a true story. But it's those things there's always going to be a reaction. I think what we're dealing with this president is a reaction to the election of the first Black president. I think as many times as we try to come up with a more equitable criminal justice system, there will be, for every time we make an advancement, people who are going to attack us and try to bring us back.
Mhm.
But we can never, ever be dismayed. We can never have a defeatist mentality. We always have to have our eyes on the prize because I would leave you all with this. Uh, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but sometimes the choir got to sing louder. We got to tell everybody who would listen that there were those who came before us who had it far, far worse than us, what
Mhm.
we are facing today. And I remember reading about Frederick Douglass in his book, Up from Slavery, when we had it far worse. I mean, we were in cotton fields, in slavery, being whipped and raped and kidnapped and lynched every day. And Frederick Douglass was going south and telling everybody who would listen, we must remember, without struggle, there can be no progress. And so I understand y'all in the next 3.5 more years, because We think it's been that long now, but it's only
It's not
still
that long.
at front of this administration. We're going to have some serious challenges and some serious struggles. But that's okay because as long as we don't have a defeatist mentality, as long as we don't surrender, as long as we don't wave the white flag, and as long as we're willing to get up every day and and fight on the front line of the struggle, as long as we're willing to do that, we give our children a better opportunity at a better future. As long as we are willing to say that our children lives matter despite what they're trying to tell us, despite them saying they're inferior or they're insignificant or they're irrelevant. Despite all of that, as long as we're telling our children, y'all are so worth the fight. And that's why every day I get up and we don't get discouraged by the struggle, have despair. No, we get up, as Frederick Douglass taught us, and we have to go celebrate the struggle. That we getting up and we running to the front line again to fight. We want all those people. I have to bite my tongue. We want all those people who think they are gonna keep us down to say, my God, they got up again today. They came and they ready to fight again. We thought we had beat them into submission. I can't believe Seth Miller is up here filing another pleading. I can't believe Ben Crump is up here filing another lawsuit. Man, the audacity of them to still believe, for them to still have hope, the audacity for them to think that their children can have an equal opportunity at this American dream. That's what it's about. We got to understand without struggle, there could be no progress. And as long as we fight and we give our children a chance for progress, and I tell you, our children are so worth the fight. Our grandmothers and grandfathers and mothers and fathers, they sacrificed for us. And we got to be willing to do the same thing for our children and their children and their children and children yet unborn.
I mean, Attorney Crump, Ben, if Martin Lee Anderson's family can have the fortitude to, get through that tragedy and fight for him and his justice, Trayvon Martin's family, George Floyd's family, Breonna Taylor's family, the list goes on, and Mary Cure and Leonard Cure's brothers and sisters who fought for him for those 16 years and never gave up on him and still fight for him today. We can get up every day and we can fight. Complacency is the enemy of progress, is the enemy of justice. And I know I'm going to keep fighting. I know that you're going to keep fighting. And I'm so thankful for you, brother. And thank you for everything you're doing for Leonard Cure's family.
No, thank you, Seth. You are a blessing from God. You and all the Innocence Projects around America, especially the Innocence Project here in Florida, that I've seen the miracles that you all perform on a regular basis, man. Y'all keep performing those miracles. We need them now more than ever. People need hope.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And we thank everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Ben, for your time. I know you're busy. We really appreciate you being here with us. And for everyone, onward, the fight goes on. And we'll see y'all next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Prayers for Leonard Cure.